According to my own observations of the subject, very few people in the world know that there were Judaized Arabs in the Arabian Peninsula centuries before Muhammad. These were native aboriginal pagan Arabs who had converted, without coercion I may add, to the religious beliefs of the Jews who had migrated to Arabia centuries earlier. Can you elaborate?
Our listeners should be made aware that contrary to what they have been taught, that Jews are a religion like Christianity is totally wrong. Since the word Jew denotes a nationality, people born in the kingdom of Judea or from parents who originated therefrom, whose religion was and still is Musawiyun, the followers of Moses. In Arabic they are called al-Ta'ifa al-Musawiyya, meaning the followers of the Mosaic sect or faith. Because of the uniqueness of their beliefs among all the pagan nations surrounding them, after their diaspora, the nationality of the Jews and their religion became synonymous, thus identifying them simply as Jews. In all cases that the word Jew or Jews is heard in this analysis, it means Musawi, the religion of the Jews. Hence, the Jews of Arabia, like the Christians of Arabia, were mostly indigenous, native Arabs of the peninsula and not foreigners. They had willingly converted to these beliefs centuries before Muhammad and his Quran. Although Arab denotes a nationality, one who originated from the Arabian Peninsula or a descendant thereof, it does not necessarily also mean one is a follower of Muhammad, a Muslim, because one can also be a Christian Arab or an Arabized, that is, subjugated peoples such as Egyptians, Algerians, Iraqis, etc., for example, whose land, culture, religion, independence, traditions and language were almost completely taken over by those of the conquering Mohammedan Arabs. In fact, no authentic history of the Arabian Jews exists in the world. The reason there are no records of the historical existence of the Jews of Arabia in the peninsula of the Arabs is simply because Muhammad and his followers completely subjugated or wiped out their villages, their books, their very existence in the year 622 to 635 CE. They did exactly the same to the Christians and pagans of Arabia. Most of what we have are based entirely upon the one-sided and unsubstantiated so-called traditions of the victorious Muhammadan Arabs that luckily contain within them kernels of exceptional facts. According to Arabian records, the Jews of the Hijaz claimed that they had come to settle in Arabia during the kingdom of Solomon, who had trading relations with the Arabs. It is a fact that in the Bible, it is only during the reign of King Solomon that the first mention ever of the Arabs is recorded, Kings 1:10-15. He most certainly sent emissaries and traders with military contingents for security to the Arabs, especially among the coastal areas for the trade routes to Africa and most probably India. Since according to Muhammadan traditions, the Queen of Sheba was allegedly from the Arabian Yemen, then the above Jewish tradition is not baseless. The second immigration by the Jews, according to the Jews, took place in 587 BC, when King Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, destroyed Jerusalem and dispersed the Jews. The Arabian Jews claimed that several of their tribes at that time had come to settle in Wadi al-Qura, Taima, and Yathrib, as mentioned by Al-Baladuri, Futuh al-Buldan. As a matter of fact, what is more concretely established is that when in AD 70, the Romans massacred tens of thousands of Jews in Judea, and then in AD 132 forced many of them from that land, many of the Jewish tribes fled to find asylum in the Hijaz, a territory that is contiguous to the south of Judea. There, being agriculturists among other things, they settled wherever they found water springs and greenery and occupied the fertile lands. Aila, Maqna, Tabuk, Taima, Wadi al-Qura, Fadak and Khaybar came under their control in that very period, and the tribes of Bani Qurayza, Bani Nadir, Bani Bahdal, and Bani Qaynuqa, who also came in the same period and settled around Yathrib. They then built up their own communal village and called it Medina, meaning our country in Hebrew, in memory of Judea. Yathrib became a suburb of Medina, settled mostly by pagan Arabs such as Al-Aus and Khazraj. Among the tribes that settled in Yathrib Medina, the Bani al-Nadir and Bani Qurayza were more prominent, for they belonged to the Kohen or priestly class. They were looked upon as of noble descent and enjoyed religious leadership among their co-religionists. It is reported in the traditions that the Qurayza were allied to the Khazraj tribe, while the other two tribes, the Nadir and Qaynuqa, were allied to the Aus. According to Arabian tradition, the first Himyarite kingdom from the tribe of Himyar in southwest Arabia, where modern Yemen is situated, was established in about 130 BCE and lasted till 525 CE. This kingdom stretched over the Yemen in the south to Hadramaut and the town of Najran in the north. Among the 9 kings known to historians of this dynasty, Abu Karib As'ad Kamil is reported to have conquered Persia and later embraced the faith of the Jews and propagated it among his subjects. Ibn Ishaq, page 6 to 19. It is not commonly known that the last Himyarite king, Dun Nawas, was of the faith of the Jews. According to Al-Tabari, he died in 525 in his wars with the Abyssinians who had conquered and subjugated southwestern Arabia. Arabic sources expressly state that the religion of the Jews became widely spread among the Bedouin tribes of southern Arabia, and that converts to the faith of the Jews were also found among the Hamdan, a North Yemenite tribe, especially among the upper strata of society. Arab historians also attest to the fact that the Judaized tribes of Arabia always sided with the pagan Arabs against the African Abyssinians. In about AD 450, the great flood of Yemen occurred. As a result of this, different tribes of the people of Saba were compelled to leave Yemen and disperse in different parts of Arabia and beyond. Thus, the Bani Ghassan went to settle in Syria, Bani Lakhm in Hira, Iraq, Bani Khuza'a between Jeddah and Mecca, and the Aus and the Khazraj went to settle in Yathrib. By the time of the 5th century, the original Israelite Jews had so totally assimilated into the Arabian environment that extremely few Hebrew names existed amongst them. Their tribal structure was Arabian, their alliances were with pagan Arabian tribes, they married and intermarried and were closely associated by blood ties with these tribes to such an extent that the Jews of one tribe fought the Jews of another tribe. Of the 12 tribes that had settled in Hijaz, none except the Bani Zawra retained its Hebrew name. In fact, there is nothing in the poetry of the Jewish poets of the pre-Islamic days to distinguish it from the poetry of the Arab poets in language, ideas, and themes. Since the Jews and Arabs are Semites, they are also physically indistinguishable from each other. By the time of Muhammad, the original Jews had given up their Hebrew culture and language, even their Hebrew names, and had become almost entirely Arabized by a long process of assimilation with the converted Arabian tribes by intermarrying with them. Thus, by the beginning of the 7th century, the majority of Arabian Jews were actually Judaized Arabs who had converted or married into the older but much diluted Israelites, whom the Quran الَّذِينَ هَادُوا, that is, those Arabs who had willingly and without coercion converted to the religion of the Jews. Their language, their dress, and their poetry became indistinguishable from other Arabs. Al-Jumahi devotes a section of his biographies, Tabaqat al-Shu'ara, to the Jewish poets of Al-Madinah and its environs. Abu al-Faraj al-Isbahani, in his Al-Aghani, cites a number of Jewish poets in Arabia. In summation, the only difference between the Judaized Arabs and the pagan Arabs in the peninsula was their religion. Our listeners should clearly be aware that the following are the Muhammadan one-sided traditions of what allegedly transpired. As usual with the Muhammadan traditions, there are no primary or even secondary, independent and reliable eyewitness reports to assert or contradict these alleged traditions. Al-Baqarah 2.62. Those who believe and those who are Jews, الَّذِينَ هَادُوا, and Christians and Sabians. Al-Nisa 4.46. Some of those who are Jews, الَّذِينَ هَادُوا. An-Nisa 4.160. Because of the wrongdoing of the Jews, الَّذِينَ هَادُوا, we forbade them good things which were before made lawful unto them. From the linguistic point of view, the Quran should have said Al-Yahud, the Jews, instead of الَّذِينَ هَادُوا, those who Hadu became Jews, if it meant Jews only and not converts.